And I'm excited to welcome everybody today to our awesome webinar on how to optimize your blog for SEO and to find new readers. I'm going to give everybody here just a second to join. Just I kind of chit chat for a second and talk a little bit about what to expect here and everything. But what I'll do is I'll be running through a presentation in a few minutes. To show you guys some things, some technical details, stuff like that, whatever. And then I'll take some questions and answers if I can. I'm running solo in this webinar today, so I'll try to keep up with questions as best I can. I know we'll make sure I take some time at the end too. So if you have some questions, feel free to drop them in the live chat. You should hopefully see a live chat bar there in your webinar next to the video. So feel free to drop those in the live chat and let me know. Let me know what questions you have, what you think. Feel free to drop them throughout the webinar, but particularly at the end. I'll try to kind of keep an eye on it and monitor if I can, and we'll get those answered hopefully as we go along. But we'll definitely do some time for Q&A at the end. If you don't get a question answered, let me know, and at the end when we do that Q&A time. And again, just taking a couple of minutes to just do some housekeeping stuff here too while people are joining. Today's webinar: how to optimize your blog for SEO and find new readers. As a blogger, those of you who may be Fist Bump Media clients who know me know that I've been a blogger for a long time, a little bit over 12 years now. A faith-based blogger myself. This is my niche where I write about things that I'm passionate about and stuff. Today's a big day. I've got actually a new book out. Right, I've self-published a book and been traditionally published. My self-published book, The Unlikely Missionary, came out several years ago. I was 6-7 years ago or something like that. And then my traditionally published book by Now Press came out. I want to say about 4 or 5 years ago now through Nav Press. But I have a new piece out called Volunteer Management 101, How to Recruit and Retain Volunteers. And it's a co-author piece that I've done with a writer friend, Alan Matting. Great guy, lots of great experience and stuff. He actually really drove the whole project and everything too, but that's available on Amazon, by the way, right now. So if you want to go check it out. So anyway, a lot of what I'm going to be sharing today as it relates to optimizing your blog for SEO and finding new readers and stuff it's the route that I've been down, right? As long as I've been running Fist Bump Media, we've been working with writer blogger clients and stuff too. So I've got a great deal of experience in this, not only with my own platform, but with helping other writers kind of build and grow their platform and achieve their publishing dreams and goals and stuff like that. So so there's a lot of stuff backing this up. But also as we've run Fist Bump Media, really focus a lot on writers and bloggers, but we've had the opportunity to work with several nonprofits and a lot of other small, medium businesses. And that's where the SEO experience really kind of comes in for me too, is with those small, medium businesses. There are some, the SEO game it's a big game, and developed quite a bit of experience in working that and figuring out what really works best for small, medium businesses. And today's presentation, I'm going to focus a lot on some of those things that companies spend a lot of money to do SEO on a regular basis and stuff on. Hopefully, try to teach you some tips and tricks that can help you apply yourself to your own blog, website, and hopefully find some new readers, because that's what the SEO is all about. It's about getting out there to where people are doing searches and they're trying to find information about something, and how do you get your stuff to come up when people are asking those questions or looking for that information. And if you can capture them, if you can get them to come over to your site, and if you impress them while they're there, then you can get a new reader, and not just rely on your friends and your other blogger friends and stuff like that too. You can actually find new readers out there using some good solid search engine optimization principles and techniques. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump in. And like I said to you, if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat anytime. But if I miss it, make sure that you hit me back up in the chat again here towards the end when we do that time for Q&A. So with that, I'm going to jump over to the presentation. Look at this. Get sharing here. And where did my share go? Come on now. All right. And let's see. All right. The share is not working. All right. So what I'm going to do is I will talk through the pieces, and I'll make the slides available to you guys through follow-up links and stuff like that. So that way I want to make sure you guys get those slides that you need to see what I'm talking about. Okay. So the first thing I want to talk about is how to develop a strong SEO, search engine optimization foundation, right? Really great quote by filmmaker George Lucas says, "Always remember your focus determines your reality." And of course, George Lucas actually said that too, but a lot of people attribute that to one of his Star Wars characters, Qui-Gon Jinn. And but here's the thing: when we're talking about search engine optimization, really the foundation of everything we're doing is really all about your focus, right? And that's a great quote too, because your focus determines your reality. So as you think about how you're building and how you're structuring your blog, your website, and trying to build a foundation for good SEO, focus is a big piece of that, because really ultimately that's one of the biggest things that the search engines are really looking forward to, is they're trying to figure out what your site is about. So it's important to have a strong focus and to know the direction that you want to go in with your content. Having that focus tells the search engine that you're about a certain topic, and that they could count on you to be able to produce content around this kind of core topic of ideas. Okay, so focus is a big deal. That's why one of the things that we really try to emphasize with people too, and if any of you have taken our 31 Days to Blog Awesomeness e-course and stuff too, one of the things we really try to point people to, and one of the very first lessons is to think about what your focus is, right? What is your focus? And there's some great initiatives out there. For example, One Word 365, right? And you see hashtag One Word 365, and there's a website for it and stuff like that too as well. That's not the important thing I really want to try to drive to, but what I really love about this is it challenges bloggers once a year in the beginning of the year to set a One Word 365, saying this year, in this case in 2018, I am going to be about what, right? And it's that what that should really drive a lot of your content. So as you're developing content, writing blog posts and stuff too, if you're doing things around your One Word 365, you're creating kind of a core pool of stuff that your readers and that even search engines something to you can count on as well. The other side of this too, when I think about what's your focus, is to develop an elevator pitch, right? So think about what you want your website, what you want your blog to be about, right? It could be centered around your one word 365, or it could be a little bit bigger idea or whatever, right? But the idea is that you want to spend some time really considering, how you present what you're about. What, when you take your focus in this big idea of what your blog is going to be about, you want to make sure you can communicate that to somebody. And this idea of the elevator pitch is, if you're not familiar with it, is imagine, like in a business, if you stepped in the elevator with the CEO of the company, and you had this big idea that you wanted to share with them. You've got about like 30 seconds in that elevator before he gets off, and to be able to share your idea. So you need to be able to communicate your idea, your pitch, very clearly, and really with kind of a call to action to it, right? Saying, hey, this is the problem. This is what I'm trying to do. This is what I would like to do. And this is how we think we can solve it. And this is what I want you to do as a result of that, right? So think about how you kind of communicate, develop an elevator pitch for your blog. So imagine you're stuck in an elevator with a reader, right? Or somebody who you think might be a good reader for your blog. How are you going to tell them clearly what you're about and sell them on your idea for come to my blog to read more about it, right? Subscribe so that you get this conversation on a regular basis, right? And you can be a part of that. So think about what's your focus, right? Think about your one word 365 kind of idea. Think about your elevator pitch, right? And how you might try to clearly and quickly be able to describe to somebody what you're about. If you can do those things, then you're on your way to really kind of developing the kind of focus that the search engines are really going to need. Okay. The next thing, when we're talking about building and structuring your website, right? When you have that kind of focus, it's important to build your website to reflect that. Okay. Like I said, I'm for those of you who know me, I'm a faith-based blogger, right? My blog is at BibleDude.life, and you'll see this kind of structure there if you check that out when you get a chance to. But really, think about how you build your pages. I see a lot of websites that you look at the homepage and you look at the header menu, the tabs where people can go and navigate and stuff too, and it's really not clear when you look at that what they're really about. Okay, so for example, at BibleDude, right, at BibleDude.life, I'm about living a biblical life, right? So for me, really, what that kind of breaks down to, if I had to kind of drop, three main kind of sub ideas around this, what it means to live a biblical life. It's read, pray, and serve, right? So for me, those are the three things that I look at and say, this is what it means to be a Bible dude, right? It means I read. That's my connection with the Bible and Bible study and theology and that kind of stuff, right? Pray is all about my communication with God, right? And covers things like worship and stuff like that. And then serve is how I live it out among other people, whether it's in ministry or outreach or global missions or any of that kind of stuff, right? So for me, when you go to the homepage, it should be very clear that I'm all about living a biblical life, right? And that means read, pray, and serve, right? So when you look at the header menu up top there, it's going to have read, pray, serve are my main categories. And then even when you go to those pages, right, then I even break it down kind of subcategories and stuff like that underneath it. So read may be about Bible study, which is different than theology, which is different than devotional type content and stuff, right? So there are several different types of access that are different than other books that I know people have written that I want to talk about, right? So all of those things too are kind of part of the read categories. I mentioned serve is a great example too. About ministry inside the church, outreach in your community, global missions. Those are all part of serve. So I've kind of created almost kind of a pyramid structure, essentially, of how the content and the pages are built. So the main page should be about this is what it means to be a biblical life. Then there are sub pages that support that: read, pray, serve. Then there may even be additional pages that support that. The ministry, the outreach, and the mission support the serve idea and stuff, right? So all of this from a structural perspective and how you build your website, right, from the get-go, it has to do with adding supporting documentation basically to everything kind of going up to the top, to say, hey, look, I have, some experience and knowledge in this space, right? And then even supporting all those subcategories, the main categories, and everything else and stuff too, is related to your blog posts, right? So all of your blog posts then should kind of hit each of those different categories and stuff. I'm going to have some blog posts about theology. I'm going to have some blog posts about local ministry in the church and stuff. Whatever it is. And I'm talking about my niche too, but you can relate this to really any niche that you're writing about, right? All your blog posts then kind of support all those categories and stuff too, because it's that content that starts to give those pages and that structure the credibility that the search engines are looking for. Because not only they're looking really for individual posts to have some kind of strength, but they want to know that your website is a strong resource, for that kind of information. And think about it like this, because one of the things I'll be hitting on and talking about here in a little bit too is an idea called domain authority, right? Google and search engines and stuff like that too, and may or may not officially or unofficially look at things like what they consider domain authority. How authoritative is a website on a subject? Now look at a website like Wikipedia. They consider obviously very authoritative. You can ask a lot of questions in Google and you'll get results from Wikipedia, near the top of your search engine results, right? It's because they built the structure of authority on all kinds of topics, so you can do that within your space and within your specialty and niche. But again, it depends on that focus and what that focus, how it breaks out and what it means as far as the different areas and things that you'll be writing about. Okay. Next, I want to talk about some technical structure things. So I'll point out a few technical structure pieces, and I'll make sure we follow up with links and stuff like that and everything too, so you can see all this and everything as well. But I want to try to make it as easy as possible as well too, because there are a lot of really great tools that can help improve the technical structure of your website very easily if you know what you're looking for, right? One of the first things is, from a technical standpoint, is what's called a SSL, security certificate, right? An SSL certificate is what gives your website the difference between HTTP and HTTPS. And these days, you'll notice a lot of browsers are starting to, if a website is using HTTPS, right, is the secure sites, and that means they have an SSL certificate, right? If they're just HTTP, you'll see a lot of those websites, the browsers are popping messages that say this website is not secure. And it doesn't mean your website is necessarily wide open, but what an SSL certificate does at a basic level too is it kind of encrypts the communication. So if a visitor on your website is filling out your contact form and they send it and it's not an HTTPS website, doesn't have the SSL certificate, technically that information could be viewed, by onlookers, right? Maybe with malicious intent. It doesn't mean your website's being hacked, but somebody's name and email address and their comment that they're filling out on, on your contact form or something like that too, could be picked up and viewed. They may gather that and use it for spam and send that person some spam emails or whatever too. But even with a contact form, what an SSL certificate will do is it will encrypt that information, so it will scramble it so that onlookers can't see it. So security is getting to be a bigger thing on the web these days. So not only do you see browsers kicking those messages, the site is not secure. It doesn't mean your website's wide open and you're getting hacked. What it means is the information is not encrypted like that. It's a really big deal if you're trying to sell stuff on your website, but even impacts things like the contact form, comment forms, stuff like that on your site. So important to think about SSL. Because that security is getting to be such a big deal, search engines like Google are starting to take that into consideration as a ranking factor. So if you have an SSL, that works out good for you. If you do not have one, that can kind of ding you down a little bit because they're saying, they're not even taking the effort to make sure that their visitors are secure and safe and all that. So, we don't want to send people there. It doesn't mean they're going to kick you out of search engine rankings, but at least for now, right? But having it does certainly benefit you. And there are a couple of ways you can do that too. I'll talk about those in a second. So having an SSL certificate is one of the key ways to make sure you have the technical structure for your website to help you with SEO. The next thing too is optimizing images, right? This is a simple one, and I see a lot of bloggers too. They take beautiful photos. They load up these 5 megabyte photos onto their blog post, and they say, "Oh, I took a whole bunch of them, so I'm going to put them all on a blog post." And it's great, it's beautiful, but those images are huge, way too big for web delivery, right? So one of the things that Google's looking at as well, and other search engines as well, when they're trying to figure out how they kind of want to rank your site is page speed, right? So how fast does your page load? Because all the data points to if your page loads too slow, then the visitors are just going to bounce. They're not even going to wait around the 5 seconds it takes for it to load, right? So you want to make sure your page speed is fast. It doesn't need to be under a second. Gosh, I don't know. Some of the studies may say that or whatever, but I'm not going to quibble about that. The big thing I will say is you need to make sure that you're taking the steps to optimize the site and the content that you're sharing so that it can load quickly. Set yourself up for success, right? And there are a couple of plugins that are very easy to install and use. One is EWW Image Optimizer. There's another one called WP Smush, which is one of my favorites too, from a group called WPMU Dev. I'm a member of that group and stuff too, so I get that content. I'll talk more about that in a second. Smush is a great one too, but what these plugins do is when you load an image to your blog post, it'll automatically kind of scan and optimize that image for delivery over the web. So it'll take that 5 megabyte image and turn it into maybe a 500K image without losing quality of the image and stuff, for web delivery and everything, but make sure that it's presentable in a way, saving a ton of space, saving a ton of speed and everything for your visitors as they come to visit you. Okay. So there's a couple cool plugins that can help with that. The next thing is that I'm going to lump a few things in together here too, right? But because there's some tools that actually they kind of do all of this piece all at once. But I'm going to talk about caching and JavaScript and CSS without getting too technical. Some of the code stuff in your site and everything too. Talk about minifying and combining scripts and stuff like that too as well. All right. So there's a couple plugins that do this as well. There's WP Super Cache, W3 Total Cache. A lot of these do really pretty much the same thing, comparable results. Those are some free plugins. If you want to spend a couple bucks, I think if I remember off the top of my head, like 20 or 30 bucks or something like that, you get one that I like a lot better called WP Rocket. It really does a fantastic job with this stuff too. And then I mentioned the WP Smush from the WPMU Dev people. They have one called Hummingbird. There's a free version of Hummingbird too, but there's a pro version as well. Just like WP Smush, there's a free version, but also a pro version. I'll mention that here more in a second too. But really, any of these plugins, WP Rocket, Total Cache, Super Cache, Hummingbird, really the key pieces that they're going to do in there too is they're going to leverage caching. And what that means is that it's going to help kind of take files from your site and move it out, onto the servers closer to the users and stuff, right? And keep them in their browsers and things like that too. So when people come to visit your website, they're not having to download all the files all at the same time. The piece about the minify and combining CSS and JavaScript, the code files and stuff too, is really about streamlining code on your website and taking some of these pieces that, maybe one plugin uses some JavaScript here and another one uses some JavaScript here and stuff like that too, and try to lump them together into one spot, to help kind of improve how the page will load, right? Again, without getting too technical, so you don't need to understand that, but just understand that there's some code optimization stuff too, and the caching, which helps kind of move files closer to the user. All of that stuff helps improve the speed, the page speed load time, right? So anyway, look for a good caching plugin as well, because it'll do a lot of that stuff for you. Also, one thing to kind of point out too is, an SSL certificate. Fist Bump Media has those for $27 a year, so not really expensive. And then a lot of the other plugins and stuff, you can get those for free. The image optimizers and the caching plugins and stuff like that. We do have a hosting plan. By far, our most popular hosting plan right now is our basic hosting, which is $19.99 a month. We have a newer package that we've been putting together called our Basic Plus. Does all the same great stuff that basic hosting does, but we throw in a free SSL certificate, and we throw in free access to all of the WPMU dev tools and stuff. So the WP Smush, the Hummingbird, you don't just get the free version of those, which will help a little bit. You'll get the pro versions of those, which will really help kind of really optimize everything to the kind of the next level. So that's a premium deal. If you were to try to get WPMU dev yourself, it would cost you, I think, about $49-50 a month or something like that. I have kind of license with it too, with Fist Bump Media, that we're able to provide that to you as one of our hosting clients. So we have that included in our Basic Plus hosting package at no additional cost then to you. So think about that. Consider that. You can pick up the SSL. You can pick up some tools that can really optimize your site and speed it up quite a bit. By going to the Basic Plus hosting. And got a quote for you too from Frank Lloyd Wright, and he says, "The good building is not one that hurts the landscape, but one which makes the landscape more beautiful than it was before the building was built." Right? So when I think about, structure and architecture for your website and everything too as well, that's, I think, a really kind of important statement, right? Because what you're building isn't something that should go out there and, just provide a lot of noise. There's a lot of noise on the web, right? Think about your content as something that can help add to the beauty of the landscape of the web out there and stuff, right? And that's a big factor. The search engines are really looking for content that adds value, right? Google wants to send people to your website if you help answer the questions that people are asking and you do it well, right? So think about all the noise that might be out there. Don't just be another crying, screaming voice in the masses and stuff too. Be unique, be special, right? And build something great that can really help drive people. Okay. So next, we'll talk about creating really well optimized SEO content. Okay. There's some research from BuzzSumo. Some of you may be familiar with some of their tools and their plugins and stuff. But BuzzSumo did some research, really thinking about the content that gets the most likes and comments and shares and stuff, right? So the most in kind of engagement. And the content that really ended up at the top of their list was news content or updates on new products and developments. So kind of hot off the presses kind of new stuff. authoritative content that answers questions people search, like what is whatever, right? So being an authoritative voice, answering questions. I'll talk about that here in just a second too. A controversial opinion, pieces that take a stand on one side of an argument. So if there are issues out there, yeah, it gosh, makes me think of the elections and stuff and how much of a mess that can be. But you know, I mean, the stuff that got the engagement was the stuff that took a stand one way or another. You know, in controversial type issues. Original research that provides unique insights. So whatever your niche is if you feel like you've done some research, have some information that can kind of add to you know, some new insight to, you know, maybe an old conversation stuff that, you know, those are fantastic. And content that centers around a trending topic and provides practical information. Okay. So first one of that list I really want to kind of dive into for a second is answering the questions that people are asking, right? There's a great website, if you're not familiar with it, called Quora, Quora, Quora.com. And it's really essentially a giant question and answer forum, right? People go out there and they ask questions and stuff too. And as a faith-based blogger, right, you know, I go out there and I look at the, you know, religious Christian Bible-based, you know, type questions and stuff, and I see a question that pop up says, you know, what are some of the most misunderstood passages of the Bible, right? Oh my gosh, right? As a blogger, I could take that question. I could probably write a whole series of blog posts around that one question, right? You know, so you think about it. That's a question that people are out there asking publicly, and I can create content around that question, try to be an authoritative voice in that conversation. When you do that and you answer those types of questions, you know, questions that are out there that people are asking, Quora is a great tool to find out what questions are people asking. You know, you can use that to help you develop great content that can actually get ranked pretty well on the search engines. You know, so remember, we talked about the whole structure of the content and stuff, right? You know, your individual blog posts are also entry points into your website too. So it's not just about trying to get somebody to land on your homepage, but even your individual blog posts. So if somebody goes to Google and asks that same question, you might have a blog post that pops up and helps answer that. If you answer it well, Google feels like you're doing it well, then you know, you can be a top result for that and really drive some solutions. The next thing I want to hit on here too is trends, right? Talking about trends, and there's a few ways you can jump on trends, and trends are a great way to get onto some new conversations that are out there, right? You know, you can go to Google Trends. I think it would just be trends.google.com would be the address that gets you there and stuff. And you can look up and see, hey, what are some of the trending topics today? What are the things people are searching for the most right now? And there's a term called like trend jacking, right? Is kind of hijacking the trends and stuff. And if you can get some of these, and you'll see the charts for how often people are searching for them stuff too. You know, if you get up in the morning and see something starting to be on the rise, and you write your blog post pretty early and stuff, right? Too, you might be able to kind of ride that trend up as people are starting to look around. Maybe your content is an authoritative voice on the subject as well too. This is one of the things too that kind of falls in line when people say, gosh, yeah, I'm running out of things to write about. What do I write about? Go look at something like Google Trends, right? You know, go look at Quora, you know, see what questions people are asking, you know, because these can be great sources of inspiration, but more than just inspiration, they can be great sources of inspiration for stuff that can actually get you noticed because people are looking for that right now, right? So go to places like Google Trends to see what topics are trending out there. Go to Twitter, right? And look at the trending topics and trending hashtags and stuff there, right? Yesterday I'm looking them up, and I see in the top 5 on Google Trends, I see Left-Handers Day, right, is one of the trending topics people are using Google search for. Then I jump over to Twitter and I see hashtag Left-Handers Day is a trending topic on Google. And see people are talking about that there as well too. What a great opportunity. I mean, if it's a topic that can kind of fit somewhere within my scope of the kinds of things that I talk about, I can write blog post content. I can get that out there, tweet it all day long and stuff like that with hashtag Left-Handers Day, find some traffic through Twitter and stuff. Maybe I get noticed by Google and stuff as a piece too, and can rank, as people ask, questions about Left-Handers Day or whatever, right? So look at those trends because they can be a great source of content, but more importantly, content that will help you actually get noticed. Okay. Next, I want to talk about optimizing the content that you write. Okay. I use tools like the Yoast plugin. A lot of people are very familiar with, and there are several others. There's a great one called Smart Crawl too. That's part of that WPMU dev package that I include in the Basic Plus hosting. Smart Crawl does a great job too, but it does a few other things that help kind of with links and things like that too. So there's a couple of really great tools out there too, but by far the most popular one is Yoast. The Yoast SEO plugin. And what I want you to be thinking of as you look at the Yoast SEO plugin is the little section where you can plug in your focus keyword, right? I did a blog post on my Bible Dude blog recently. Focus keyword was attachment disorder, right? So right above the section where there's the focus keyword, you'll see this in the slides when I share them later, is a snippet preview. That snippet preview is what shows up in the search results on the search engines when people search that and find your content on the search engine there. You want to make sure that your focus keyword is in the title that appears on that, but it's also in the description, right? And that description piece too, a lot of times they'll just default to the first, so many characters of text in your blog post. Don't let that happen, because that's an opportunity to put a special message there for people on the search engines, right? To see and try to convince them to come to your blog. You want to include your keyword in there, but you'll also just take a second to try to explain very shortly, because it's just a certain number, about the length of a tweet, right? It's a very short description of what your content is about. That's your opportunity to convince somebody who finds you on the search engine to say, hey, come read this, because you're going to get this out of it, right? So use that almost as kind of, think about a mini elevator pitch, right, for your blog post, right? That needs to be in the description field when you edit the snippet, right, and contain your keyword as well too, okay? That's a big thing. The next thing is when you're creating your blog post content and you're uploading your images, right? Upload your images. There's a couple things that I want you to do with your images. Well, number one, before you even upload it, rename the file and include your keyword in the file name, right? So I mentioned the blog post that I was talking about, using attachment disorders is the focus keyword for that, right? I want to name the image attachment dash disorder dash, whatever else, tell me to kind of distinguish what images I'm using. Make sure your focus keyword is part of the file name for that image. And then also the second most important thing, the next most important thing too, is that there's going to be a field when you're uploading it there that says alt text, right? Alt text is for you to put in other keywords that really kind of tag on the image. So use your focus keyword, in my case, attachment disorder, maybe use other keywords, phrases and stuff too that help kind of index that image a little bit. But those are keyword terms and stuff that help the search engines read. And when they scan everything over, they're looking over the content, they're looking over the words, the text you have on the page, they're looking over the title. We'll talk about header text and stuff like that in just a second too, right? But they're also looking at that image and saying, oh, look at here's an image. Here's an image about this topic, right? Here's an image, and I know that because it's titled that. It's got the keyword in the alt text field stuff, so the search engine will look at that. But you'll want to make sure. And again, of course, if you're optimizing those images on the way up because you're using a great plugin like Smush or something like that too, it's going to be a quick loading image, but it'll be optimized because you've got the keyword tagged in the title and in the alt text for it as well too. And then when I say the search engines will scan over your site, right, over the page content and looking to try to figure out what it's about, one of the things that they'll look at too is what's called header text. Okay, and a lot of times, the way a lot of themes work, right? The blog post title up top will usually be in header 1 text. Most of the time, maybe not, but most of the time it's usually like a header 1 text. So your keyword should be in there, right? Because that's the title of your post. You want your keyword in the title of the post. But then also within your content, right? This serves a couple of purposes. I like to create blog content that's kind of written in sections, right? In each of those sections, I use a 1-line header, right? And I usually use header 2 for those kind of in-post headers, right? Also important to make sure you throw your focus keyword in at least one of those H2 tagged header text within your post, okay? Because that's another piece, that's another hot point that, when the search engines are scanning, the bots are scanning your site, they're going, let me check header text, yep, image alt text, yep, description, yep, all these things, right? As this checklist to try to kind of figure out how your post is structured so that, yes, the post is about this topic, this idea, this keyword, okay? So that's a big thing. All right. And the next I want to talk about, even using your old content, right? ProBlogger actually did a really great post. Darren Rouse did a great post about repurposing old content. Some of the ideas I'll hit on here too, and you'll see this in the slides as well too. But a lot of repurposing your old content is going to start with, and this is a really great resource because it's something that can give your whole site a great little boost in SEO and stuff too, right? But repurposing your content will start with your analytics, okay? So hopefully, if you take it 31 days to blog awesome, this e-course, if not, take it, right? If you have taken it, you know that we need to get Google Analytics installed on your website, right? Google Analytics is going to give you some drill down information, the Jetpack stats and stuff like that won't be able to give you. Okay, so use your Google Analytics and dig deep and stuff too. But in your Google Analytics, you can see this in the slides, an example of this in the slides. If you go under the section of the behavior, right? You have some audience acquisition and behavior. Behavior will tell you a lot about what people are doing on your website. Under site content drops down, and there's a section for landing pages. Landing pages are the pages that people land on first when they come to your website, right? Hopefully your homepage is a big landing page, right? But really any blog post you have, any other page on your website can be a landing page, right? So I like to search for landing pages because that's the point of entry when people come to your website. So I'll look at landing pages, right? Behavior, site content, and landing pages. And then I'll change the dates for what I want Google Analytics to show me. And I'll go back a year or 2 or 3, depending on how long you've been blogging, maybe all of your history or whatever too, right? But go back over time. You want to look over time, a lot of history, get a really good sample, go back 2 or 3 years or something like that, right? And look at all of the data for the last 2-3 years for the landing pages, right? And what that'll show you then is it'll give you a list of the pages on your site that are the top, ranked, by the number of sessions, right? The top number of landing pages on your website, which means these are the pages that most people are landing on your site with, right? So maybe you have a blog post you wrote 2 years ago, and it's still, number 2, number 3, or something like that in your top landing pages over the last few years. Okay, what that means is people have found you with that content, right? That's the content that people are landing on your website. And there's a few other ways to kind of filter this around too. I'm going to try to keep it simple here, right? But what I'm saying is take a look at that list in your Google Analytics, right? Look at those landing pages over the top few years and look at the top several of them. And what are those blog posts, okay? So once you've identified what those blog posts are, right, there's a few things you want to do with it. First, and this is what comes from ProBlogger, right? And talking about reworking old content. First, proofread it carefully, right? If it's a page that's continuing to drive traffic to your website, proofread it to make sure it's good and clean, right? If it's a kind of a core piece that is getting people to your website, you want to make sure that it's putting your best foot forward. Okay, so proofread it carefully, make any updates and stuff like that that you need to make sure that it's good and clean and reads well. Update the post, update it to fit with whatever's happening today. Okay, so Google's always looking to make sure that the content is relevant and current and all that stuff, right? So even if you wrote a post 3, 4, 5 years ago, whatever. Maybe it's what we call evergreen content, right? So it's the kind of stuff that it's not based on some one event that happened 5 years ago. It's something that's always relevant, right? It's evergreen, right? But you can look at that content and see, does it need any updates that might relate to current events, things that are going on today. I can update that content in that post right now today. Consider adding more detail. There are a lot of times I've written blog posts about, especially from the Fistbump Media site, I say, hey, here's 9 tips on how to do whatever, right? I may go back and say, I've actually learned a little bit more. Let me add another paragraph here on this idea, and maybe the blog post itself can be updated to add more detail and information that kind of expand on some of the ideas based on the information you didn't really have before. Check all the links, right? If you're linking to stuff within your blog post, you want to make sure that the links that you're pointing to are good links, and do they need to be updated? Are they pointing to a link that doesn't exist anymore? Is it a broken link? Right? You want to make sure the links are working good. I'll talk more about links here in just a second, but links are really the life juice of the search engines and the web. So you want to make sure the links all work well. Link to some of your more recent post, right? So maybe you wrote something, a few years ago, right? And it touches on something. You have another blog post that's somewhat related, right? Can you throw a link in your old blog post that points to the new content? Because the new content today didn't exist when you originally wrote it, right? So the link might not be there. So add new links that you might have on your site to the new content or whatever that could help be a resource in that post. And then spend the time to make it more attractive, right? I've seen people, if you've been blogging for several years, maybe you've updated your website, but now in the new theme that you're in, everything looks great when you do new blog posts and stuff, but maybe an old blog post just looks kind of choppy and broken and stuff. Make sure it looks good. Update it so that maybe it looks good in the newer theme, in the newer format. Is there maybe a better image that you can use today that you didn't have before or something, whatever, update it to make it more attractive. I think once you do all of this stuff, you can reshare your post, your content, right? I don't want you to change the link. I don't want you to copy the text and stuff and put it into a new post. There are search engine problems that happen when you do that stuff. Keep the same link, right? Keep the same post, update it, and just reshare it, right? Just send it back out to social media and stuff saying, hey, in case you missed it, or hey, I was thinking about this one, updated for 2018 or whatever, right? There's no reason you can't go to your MailChimp account and resend that out to your subscribers and stuff, saying, hey, updated, just wanted to send you this, it's great stuff. Whatever it is, keep the same link, because that's the piece that's going to get the juice and stuff over on the search engine, on Google and stuff. But the more you can keep it updated and fresh and content stuff, the more Google will say, yeah, this is great information. It's been ranking well for a while, but look, they just made it even better. So you make it a better resource for readers that are coming over from Google. Cool. All right. So now I'm going to move into kind of the third section of this whole thing, right? Too, and talk about. We're getting off the site now. We're going to talk about techniques that will boost your efforts. Okay. All the on-site stuff that you can do to optimize, build a good structure and stuff like that too. That's only really part of the SEO. I won't call it a game, but kind of the SEO strategy and techniques and stuff to really help kind of get you noticed. Okay. So there's some other techniques that once you've got all your on-site stuff just solid and clean and clicking and everything's looking great, right? You want to think about what you can start doing off-site to help kind of add the juice and stuff, right? To the boost to your search engine optimization efforts. There's a guy, a software engineer. His name is Matt Cutts. Used to work for Google. He's head of their the Google spam division or whatever stuff too. He's got a great thing that he was known for saying, and it's that the objective is not to make your links appear natural. The objective is that your links are natural. Okay, so back in the early days of search engine optimization, it was all about how I just stuff the keyword as much as I can into a blog post or a page, and how do I just send a million links and stuff like that too, because links are really still a big ranking factor for the search engines, right? But they're getting really smart about how they figure out which links are valuable and which are not, right? There are even links that can be it could be hazardous, right? It could be toxic, right, for your SEO if they're coming from a bad source. And most bloggers, when you're going out getting links and stuff, you're probably not too worried about that. But there are people who will build links for you, and they're doing it from a kind of a shady source and stuff. Google's onto that and can actually even discredit you and even put you in penalty, pulling your site down if you're not using good links, right? So to Matt Cutt's point, stuff. Don't make your links appear natural. Don't try to fabricate something. It's important that your links just are natural, right? Links are like I said, it's the juice that makes the web happen, right? It's what connects everything, across the web and stuff, right? So links are really, really critically important. So when we think about links, there's a few ways that you want to kind of work on this. First is guest posting, okay? And when you're guest posting, you're going to want to look at a couple of different levels. I had mentioned this idea of a number that most websites have too, called domain authority, right? It's a number from like 1 to 100, 100 being the top of stuff. Obviously, something like Google, Wikipedia, stuff like that too, Facebook, they're going to be domain authority, ultimately 100, right? A brand new website that just started today has got no authority on any subject, right? So its domain authority is going to be 0, right? Most sites are going to be somewhere in between. A lot of blogs are probably going to be on the lower end of the scale at around 10, 20 or so. And it's not that you necessarily need to try to achieve a certain score. That's not why I'm bringing up domain authority. Why I'm bringing up domain authority is because when it comes to the links coming to your website, it's good to have a mix, right? Because that's what feels more natural, right? It's not that I've got all domain authority 50 websites all point to my website. That's all I got, right? That doesn't look natural. But guest posting, get on somebody else's blog, other blogger friends that you have, guest post back and forth with each other or something like that. Because when you guest post on somebody else's blog, there's probably a link to, hey, this is Dan King wrote this, and you can find him here, right? Those are good links that point back to my website then when I guest post on somebody else's website. But find a good mix. It's okay to guest post on somebody's website who has a domain authority of 10. It's not going to be a high juice kind of link, but also look for opportunities too. Maybe there's a bigger, more well-known blogger or something like that too that and can connect with. That might be interested in the guest post as well too, right? The important thing is when you're going at people with, hey, I would love to guest post. Don't do it from a perspective of like, I want to do this because I want to get some links back to my site, right? Go at it saying, hey, I want to add value for you somehow, right? And find a way, know a way even before you ask, right? That I can add value for you in this way. The same holds true too of, think about if you were to approach an online magazine or even a print magazine or something like that too, and say, I would like to write an article, right? You're going to need to show them that you can really add value for their readers, right? And that's what you want to do for anybody that you're guest posting for, right? A lot of people think I want to write my best content for my site. Really? Probably write your best content when you ever write for somebody else's site, regardless of their, size and structure and everything too. But think about that. Think about putting out your best on other people's sites and being a great resource for their readers, right? And as a result, you get the links back to your website, right? So the links should be kind of the side effect of being valuable to somebody else's readers. Think about press releases, right? This may not apply to everybody or every kind of blog, but there are even some websites out there where, if you have something newsworthy that you've written about or, talked about or whatever too, write a short press release. There's some great guides and stuff online to how to do this. But press releases are great because typically they'll show up on pretty high domain authority websites and stuff, right? The press release sites themselves are usually like that. If there's any kind of distribution in there for your press releases and stuff, then those newspaper and news TV websites and stuff that they may appear on in their stream and stuff, it may not get seen by a lot of people, but those are links back to your website from higher domain authority websites and stuff. It's just a great way to kind of build in and mix in some other types of links. One more thing too, and this is really kind of a power tip for bloggers when it comes to building good links back to your website. Do a Google search, look for PR, public relations people stuff, right? Because there are a lot of people out there, especially for bloggers, PR people who are trying to promote books, films, TV shows, music, musicians, and new albums they might have coming out and stuff too. Offer to use your platform as a way to help promote. A couple of things I like to do in this space is, number one, do interviews, right? Offer to do an email interview, a live video interview over something like this, a phone recording, talk on the phone and record the conversation or something like that, right? All of these are great ways to maybe connect and have a conversation. I have done a ton of email interviews where I just send somebody, hey, here's 4 or 5 questions that I have for you. Some musician about a new album they have coming out, right? And they reply back, and you take that and you post that as an interview on your blog, right? These are really, really fantastic. I'll talk about what to do with it too once you get the interview. Also, just do reviews, right? Review books, review music, films, TV shows, whatever and stuff, right? Those reviews also, if you're reviewing a book, link to it with your affiliate link on Amazon or something like that. Maybe make a little bit of cash out of it and stuff, right? But here's the big thing, right? With both of those, whether it's interviews or reviews, promote them heavily on social media using that, the at mentions, the hashtags, anything like that. But you can also typically post those on other bigger user-driven content websites. I have at one time taken a musician interview that I did and shared the link as a resource on the musician's Wikipedia page, right? And Wikipedia can be pretty, it's managed pretty closely and stuff, as far as what's appropriate content stuff too. So you want to make sure you're just not trying to do some self-promotion kind of stuff. But if it's a good resource, you feel like your interview adds value to somebody who might be trying to research that person from Wikipedia, you can add that link on Wikipedia. Wikipedia is a very high value website, high domain authority. If that link is pointing back to your website, then it sends a lot of great Google juice your way, right? I've also done things like done a movie review on my blog, and then I've gone over to IMDb, right, the big movie TV show kind of online database and stuff, and there's a place to drop user reviews, right? So I can say, hey, here's a link to a review for this TV show or for this movie or something like that on my website. So again, IMDb, a very high value website. It's got links on it pointing back to my website. So those are great ways to build some great juice. So if you're doing any of those things, reviewing books, anything like that, try to find a way, connect with a publicist or a PR person, see if you can connect, get some interviews, and use all of those things in different places where you might be able to share those links to point back to your content. And again, whether they drive traffic to your site or not is irrelevant. The big thing you're really looking for is the juice from a high authority website pointing back to your website, so that you kind of get credit for being an authority on a subject. And with that, really the big thing is I think when it comes to the SEO game, is that you have the strategy, right? You know the direction where you want to go. It really all goes back to that focus, that core focus that you're talking about, that we talked about at the very beginning, and then everything really kind of builds off of that, right? All the technical stuff that you do on your site, all the other link building stuff and everything too, should really kind of drive towards your focus and stuff, and that sends all the right signals to the search engines about who you are and what you're doing and what you're writing about, and helps them understand how they can position you to be a resource to any of their readers and stuff. So with that, that is it. So we can jump into a little bit of time of Q&A here too. I know I've kind of hit the limit, but if anybody's got any questions and can hit the live chat at all, feel free to drop those in there. And I'm not seeing anything yet. So what I will do is I will make sure we hang and yeah. So if you do have any questions, feel free to hit us up. You can hit us up anytime at learning@fistbumpmedia.com, and we're always happy to help assist with anything you do. Awesome. With that, signing out. Have a great day.